Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. China says Indian troops crossed the line of actual control and fired warning shots in the eastern Ladakh region. A spokesman for the People's Liberation Army's Western Command said Indian actions are a provocation that will escalate tensions. The two countries have been in a standoff in the Himalayan border region since June the 16th. The Taliban say they are ready to begin the inter-Afghan negotiations, but only after all of their prisoners released. A spokesperson for the Taliban's political office, Dr. Mohammed Naeem, said the release of some prisoners is still pending, which is being discussed. Russia says the first batch of the locally developed COVID-19 vaccine Sputnik 5 has been released into public circulation. Russia is the third worst hit country by the coronavirus after the US and India. India has reported the highest daily toll of 1,133 deaths in the world today, with nearly 4.3 million cases. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, 5 people have died overnight, raising the toll to 6,350, with over 299,000 infections. The novel coronavirus has claimed over 892,000 lives and infected over 27.3 million globally. Ireland says Britain's trade talks with the European Union will be considered null and void if it fails to fully implement the Brexit deal. In an interview, Irish Prime Minister Michael Martin said the agreement is an international treaty and he expects Britain to implement what was agreed. Earlier, the EU warned Britain that there would be no trade deal after reports that London might undercut the Brexit deal signed in January. Those were the headlines and detailed stories right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. And now for the news in detail. China says the Indian troops crossed the line of actual control and fired warning shots in the eastern Ladakh region. A spokesman for the People's Liberation Army's Western Command said India's actions are a provocation that will escalate tensions. The spokesman said Indian troops crossed the disputed western Himalayan border at the strategic outpost of Pangong. He urged New Delhi to withdraw its troops, saying Indian troops' movement was in violation of an earlier bilateral agreement. The recent border escalation comes after a meeting between Chinese and Indian defense ministers in Moscow on Friday. The two countries have been in a standoff in the Himalayan border region since June the 16th. The crisis peaked when 20 Indian soldiers were killed on June the 15th in the disputed Aksai Chin region administered by China. The Taliban say they are ready to begin the inter-Afghan negotiations, but only after all their prisoners are released. The spokesperson for the Taliban's political office, Dr. Mohammed Naeem, said the release of some prisoners is still pending, which is being discussed. Both Kabul and the Taliban have already announced their negotiating teams for the talks. US envoy Zalmay Khalilzad and the delegations are in Doha, where the negotiations will be held. Kabul says the Taliban have taken 10 people hostage after attacking a military checkpost in Afghanistan's northeastern Panjshir province. The head of Panjshir's provincial council said the hostages are all civilians and being kept in a local mosque. However, Taliban spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid claimed all those captured are soldiers. He said the Taliban fighters have detained 3 soldiers. Mujahid said the clearance operation is still going on in Haft Asyab area. India has reported the highest daily coronavirus deaths in the world with 1,133 fatalities, while over 75,000 tested positive for the virus. India's COVID-19 death count has surged to nearly 73,000 with almost 4.3 million cases. The novel coronavirus has claimed over 891,000 lives and infected over 27.2 million globally. More in this report.
Coronavirus continues to wreak havoc in India. According to the World Health Organization, India has been reporting the highest number of daily COVID-19 cases in the world for nearly a month. The novel coronavirus is also threatening a full-blown second wave in the UK and France. Britain has reported its highest number of daily cases since May. Spain has become the first Western European country to report a total cases of over 500,000. The WHO has said the world needs to be ready for the next pandemic as it called on countries to invest in public health.
This will not be the last pandemic. History teaches us that outbreaks and pandemics are a fact of life. But when the next pandemic comes, the world must be ready, more ready than it was this time.
In the Americas, Argentina's death toll has crossed 10,000 as the South American nation fights to bring the cases under control. A survey has shown 5% of Brazilians will not take a COVID-19 vaccine under any circumstance, and a further 20% indicated they might not take it. While US President Donald Trump said there is a surprise coming up very soon, referring to the coronavirus vaccine.
So, contrary to all of the lies, the vaccine, that they're politicalized, they'll say anything, and it's so dangerous for our country what they say. But the vaccine will be very safe and very effective, and it'll be delivered very soon. You could have a very big surprise coming up. I'm sure you'll be very happy, but the people will be happy. The people of the world will be happy.
In Asia, mainland China has reported no domestic cases for the 23rd day straight, while South Korea has reported a further decline in daily cases as the number remained below 200 for the 6th consecutive day.
In Pakistan, 5 more people have died from the new coronavirus, while 330 more tested positive in the last 24 hours. The health ministry said the death toll in the country is 6,350. The ministry said over 286,000 patients have recovered so far, declining the number of active cases to 6,726. The ministry said the countrywide caseload is over 299,000. Sindh remains the most affected province with over 130,000 infections, while Punjab has reported more than 97,000 cases so far. Russia says the first batch of the locally developed COVID-19 vaccine Sputnik V has been released into public circulation. Russian Health Ministry said the distribution of the medicine supplies is expected soon. It said those at high risk of the disease will be vaccinated first. Russia became the first country in the world to register a vaccine against the coronavirus on August 11th. The vaccine underwent vaccine trials during the months of June and July. Ireland says Britain's trade talks with the European Union will be considered null and void if it fails to fully implement the Brexit deal. In an interview, Irish Prime Minister Michael Martin said the agreement is an international treaty and he expects Britain to implement what was agreed. The deal includes special arrangements to avoid a hard border between Ireland and British-ruled Northern Ireland. Earlier, the EU warned Britain that there would be no trade deal after reports that London might undercut the Brexit deal signed in January. US President Donald Trump has said he would support Germany pulling out of Nord Stream 2 with Russia, but claimed its energy sector was too weak to do so. At a press conference in Washington, Trump said he has long advised Germany to reduce its over-dependency on Russian energy. President Trump said NATO exists to protect Europe from Russia. But he said Germany paid billions of dollars to the country at a time when its annual dues to the alliance are still pending. The Nord Stream pipeline brings Russian natural gas to Germany and other parts of Europe. Calls to withdraw the project gained new momentum in Russian critic Alexei Navalny's alleged poisoning. The UN has called on Russia to conduct or cooperate with a full independent investigation into Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny's suspected poisoning. In a statement, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Michelle Bachelet said proper legal processes haven't been carried out in previous such incidents. It said poisonings and other targeted assassinations of Russian citizens over the past 2 decades was profoundly disturbing. Earlier, doctors at a German hospital said Alexei Navalny is out of an induced coma. In a statement, Berlin's Shared Hospital said Navalny's condition is improving, but it is too early to assess the long-term impact of the poisoning. Yemen's Houthi rebels say they have carried out an attack against multiple targets in Saudi Arabia. The armed group's spokesperson, General Yahya Sarrai, said the latest operation hit Saudi Arabia's Aba International Airport. He said the Air Force carried out wide-scale attacks with drones hitting several sensitive and military targets. The Arab coalition fighting in Yemen has not commented on the claim yet. Yemen faces the world's worst humanitarian crisis as the unrest and war in the country has entered its 5th year. Saudi Arabia has convicted 8 people charged with the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. State media said a court handed 20-year sentences to 5 people charged in the murder case. It said 3 others were sentenced to between 7 to 10 years. The final court verdict comes after Khashoggi's sons said in May they had pardoned the killers. Khashoggi went missing on the 2nd of October 2018 while visiting the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. In Jerusalem, the Israeli army has arrested 50 Palestinians in overnight raids in the occupied West Bank. A spokeswoman for the Palestinians prisoners said the raids targeted Hebron province. She said 2 women are among those arrested by the Israeli forces. She said leading Hamas members are also among those arrested. China has launched an initiative to establish global standards on data security. At the announcement, China's State Councillor Wang Yi said Beijing intends to promote multilateralism amid bullying by some countries. Wang said a new set of global data security rules should reflect and respect the wishes and interests of all the countries. He said some countries want to pursue unilateralism as they hunt and bully leading companies under the pretext of security. The program urges technology firms to prevent illegal data collection and calls to protect jurisdiction and data management rights of all countries. Beijing's initiative comes a month after the US launched its campaign, Untrusted Chinese Apps, under a program called the Clean Network. It's time for a short break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Honor Pakistan Navy Heroes of 1965 War against India. The nation is celebrating Navy Day today. This commemorates the heroic achievements by Pakistan's naval forces during the war. In his message, Pakistan's Chief of Naval Staff, Admiral Zafar Mahmood Abbasi, said the country's Navy is fully capable and vigilantly guarding its maritime boundaries and interests. He said the Navy is recognized as a potent force in the region and a key partner in international navies' collaborative maritime security. Abbasi said Pakistan reiterates solidarity with Kashmiris and denounces blatant annexation of Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. On its National Day, Pakistan Navy has released a special docu-film, Surkhru. It features the story of Pakistan Navy's successful detection of Indian submarine and deterring it from entering into Pakistani waters on 4th of March 2019. Surkhru demonstrates the rundown of real-time action and sequences of the incident played by the national heroes. Let's take a look.
पुलवामा अटैक 14 फरवरी
और यहाँ भी भारत को मुंह की खानी पड़ी है.
Pakistani Navy claimed it detected the Indian submarine.
I can also see the submarine on tactical mission system. It's definitely an Indian submarine.
Prepare for mat run. Prepare for mat run.
Captain of the aircraft, ready to fire the weapon now. I'm ready with the weapon. We can hit that submarine now.
ये खेल हमें बड़ा अच्छा आता है और किसी और को खेलना हो तो पहले सीख के आए।
The European Union has voiced concern and regret over Serbia's commitment to move its embassy in Israel to Jerusalem. Speaking to the media in Brussels, the EU spokesman Peter Stano said any steps that call into questioning the bloc's common position on Jerusalem are a matter of serious concern. The move has cast a shadow over the resumption of Serbia-Kosovo talks. President Alexander Vučić of Serbia and Kosovo Prime Minister Abdullah Huti are to meet in Brussels for the second round of EU broker talks. The meeting follows a high-profile summit at the White House where Vučić and Huti agreed to improve economic relations. In Serbia's case, Belgrade committed to moving its embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Venezuela's opposition coalition has announced a unitary pact calling for free elections while others boycott the polls. Four main opposition parties, along with 33 smaller entities, call for increased international pressure on President Nicolas Maduro. The opposition coalition says it will not take part in the presidential and legislative elections over possible rigging. But a faction led by two-time presidential candidate Henrique Capriles has opened talks with the government to seek assurances. Meanwhile, opposition leader Juan Guaido said engaging in a fraudulent election will enable Maduro's dictatorship.
We ratify our rejection of the fraud elections that has been called on December 6 by the dictatorship. We will mobilize for a national and international campaign for free presidential and parliamentary elections. Also, we will build a campaign for a Venezuela that is against fraud.
A Bolivian court has disqualified exiled former President Evo Morales from running for the country's Senate. The court said Morales does not meet the residency requirements to be a Senate candidate. A government lawyer said the rejection of the former president's legal appeal was a win of Bolivia's constitution and its people. The court's decision upholds the previous ban on Morales' candidacy by Bolivia's electoral tribunal in February.
Those who have been deemed ineligible in the election believe it is not befitting of their interests. The Supreme Electoral Tribunal analyzes each candidate's case to determine which candidates fulfill the requirements and which don't.
Belarusian protest leader Maria Kolesnikova has been detained while trying to cross the border into Ukraine. Belarusian state media said two of her allies managed to leave the country. Ukrainian border officials confirmed that Kolesnikova arrived at the frontier but did not cross into Ukraine. Yesterday, masked men had detained Kolesnikova in central Minsk and driven her off in a van. She was one of three women who joined forces to challenge incumbent Alexander Lukashenko in August's election. Meanwhile, the EU demanded Belarus to release all the detained on political grounds before and after the disputed presidential election. "19 workers have died and 6 others were injured in a marble mine collapse in Pakistan's northwestern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. Local government officials say there were 50 to 60 people working in the mine when the accident occurred in Mohmand district. Officials said dozens were still trapped under the rubble while army troops were also called in. Police said the landslide was caused the mine to cave in. Mexico City's ancient lake, Texcoco, has re-emerged and taken over the base of a control tower at an abandoned construction site of an airport. Officials have decided to let the swarm grow into a park. More in this report.
Bright green stalks of weeds are sprouting from the grounds where planes were supposed to take off at a new Mexico City airport. Officials are letting nature take over in their bid to transform the marshy swath of an ancient lake into a giant park. Mexico's former president commissioned a British architect to build a futuristic international airport at a cost of some $13 billion. Upon taking office in 2018, President Andrés Manuel López Obrador axed the project after arguing it will be costly to prevent sinking on the waterlogged soil.
el terreno donde se estaba construyendo.
Look at where they were building the Texcoco airport. It was fortunate we called it off. How much was it going to cost us to continue pumping water out of the area? They chose the worst place.
The abandoned construction zone is now part of a project to conserve 12,200 hectares of marsh. Birds glided in a pond beneath columns of crisscrossing steel bars that were meant to become a terminal, greeting some 70 million passengers a year. The steel will be sold as scrap now. About half of that area is slated for public use, including sports and event space, more than twice the size of New York Central Park.
We were thinking it could be inaugurated as a park at the beginning of next year. That's a reality, and it will be able to coexist with other type of activities. To open areas which could serve to walk around in for bird watching, as you can see here.
Officials point to recent flooding as proof that maintenance would have been difficult and say less than 20% of construction was completed. They paid some $603 million to cancel more than 600 contracts.
Saudi King Salman bin Abdulaziz and Russian President Vladimir Putin have emphasized the importance of bilateral trade relations in a telephonic conversation. The Saudi state media said King Salman expressed satisfaction over Russia's role in the stabilization of global oil market under the OPEC Plus deal. Meanwhile, in a statement, the Kremlin said Putin highlighted the fruitful cooperation with Saudi Arabia in the field of energy. Is that the two leaders also discussed preparations for the upcoming meeting of G20 heads of states and the governments under the Saudi presidency. The Kremlin said King Salman and Putin paid particular attention to the prospects of joint production of the Russian vaccine to prevent further infection. American global credit rating agency Fitch Ratings have forecast India's gross domestic product to hit minus 10.5%. Fitch revised its earlier estimate of minus 5% rather for the current financial year 2021. Fitch revised forecast comes a few days after New Delhi said its GDP shrank by a massive 23.9% year on year. The economic catastrophe had an impact across the board as private consumption fell nearly 27%, while investment nosedived by 47%. India's National Statistical Organization's data shows the country is on course for its first full-year contraction since 1980. The GDP drop has been attributed to a stringent but mismanaged lockdown that resulted in nearly 20 million salaried people losing their jobs. European markets have declined over growing uncertainty regarding the post-Brexit trade deal between the UK and the EU. The pan-European stock 600 slid nearly 1%, with the tech sector falling more than 1.5%. London's FTSE shed less than 0.5%, while Italy's FTSE MIB tumbled over 1%. Frankfurt's DAX also lost almost 0.5%. In Paris, the CAC 40 dipped almost 1%. Earlier, all the Asian stocks registered gains in today's trade. And now the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For further updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.